Michelle Prince, founder and CEO of Performance Publishing Group, making a difference one story at a time. We'll be shining the light on successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders that are getting results and making a difference. We'll talk about how they built their businesses, are creating movements, and leveraging the power of authority in their own lives. Be sure to stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Michelle Prince, the host of the Power of Authority Spotlight. I'm really excited about who we have on the show today. I think we're going to learn a lot about not just his story, but also what he does for a business and also in consulting. But I would love to welcome to the show, Jason Rosenbaum.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, Michelle. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here, because you have a corporate background, right? You work with managing partner and COO of Crowd Favorite. And I do want to dive into, more specifically your journey, but tell us a little bit more about Crowd Favorite and what you do there.
Yeah, absolutely. Crowd Favorite was started back in 2007. It was known at the time as the original WordPress agency for the enterprise. So it did a lot of open source software installations for the enterprise crowd. It has since evolved over the last 15 years of existence. It is now an aggregate of 3 separate companies that came together in 2014. And I'll tell stories about obstacles later surrounding that kind of integration. And currently today, we are still providing web development and digital strategy for the Fortune 1000, and really helping folks solve these days what are really system integration challenges that they face. A lot of data aggregation and data engagement going on these days, lots of different proprietary systems that companies use, and how do not only their end customers and their end clients get a great experience through their digital solutions, but how do their teams also utilize their digital products as efficiently and optimally as possible. So that's really where we can step in and help.
Okay. Yeah. The journey, I was looking through the website and the journey, even as a company, it's evolved so much.
Very much so.
But how fun to be kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of the things that have been happening with technology, since you started.
100%. And, certainly not having a technology background per se before I joined my partner and growing Crowd Favorite, definitely it's been a huge learning curve, but also nice to bring a little bit of a different perspective to it than I think a lot of other folks have. I think it's been great for us.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really big on story, and I love the backstory of people. I'm always impressed by what people do and titles and all that. But at the end of the day, I want to know more of who you are and how you actually got to where you are today. So give us a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah. Quick biographical stuff. Born and raised in New York City, in the New York City area for the most part. Went to boarding school and college in Pennsylvania, and have sort of split my adult time between California and New York the last 25 years. I'm starting to date myself. That doesn't seem possible, but that's true. Originally coming out of school, I had a double major in English and business and economics, but I wanted to be an actor. That was really what I wanted to do. In fact, even when I was in high school, that was what I really wanted to do. And so after 2 years of debating with my parents whether I should stay in college, we determined I should, because clearly that was where I'm sitting today, that was the right decision. But I think, coming out of that creative field and also really concentrating on a life spent in sports. So for me, it was a lot of sports and a lot of theater. Those backgrounds really helped me out a lot in transitioning into different aspects of my professional development over the last 25 years. Again, starting out as an actor and a bartender, I think, you pick up so many great skills in knowing your audience, customer service, knowing what people want before they know what they want, really listening, learning, having an empathetic ear, all those things that translate into providing a great experience. I think those things have really helped. Of course, a little work in retail, which I think everybody should work retail and hospitality for at least a year. Because I think there are tremendous lessons that come out of that experience, and not all of them positive, but they're still learning lessons. And I think everybody needs to understand, how to deal with the public and handle sometimes unfair criticism and take it and move on and know that you're providing great value and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. And I was in New York during one of my stints here, and as bartenders do, we don't have a day job, or actors, I suppose. So I happened to be playing softball in Central Park one day. This is in 2007, 2008. Met a guy there who wanted to start a business. This is at the time, this was pretty aggressive in the cannabis industry, but he wanted to do it very, medical and progressive and all those things. And so we started it together. Jumped in there as a chief marketing officer. And that led us to needing a website in 2009, he moved to California. I was still in New York. 2010, I moved to California right behind him. We were literally the cliche of two guys working out of a garage.
Wow.
In mid LA. And we needed a website. And that's how I met my current partner. Was at the time, Kareem was running VeloWare, was the name of the company. It was a small software company at the time. That's how we actually got hooked up. And coming out of those meetings and engaging them to build the website, which at the time for VeloWare was the biggest website I think they had built at the time. It's like $35,000 or something, tiny. We brought the company to market. I think as things go, it kind of ran its course. Kareem had reached out to me and said, look, I have this idea on how to grow and scale this company, but I really don't know how exactly to do it, responsibly. Would you be interested? And we got to talking, and I think I saw a short, mid, and long-term plan to growth. And after a couple of pitchers of beer, I was able to make my case, and he agreed, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that, I love that the story for so many reasons. One, you were playing softball and randomly start connecting with a guy.
That's how it happens.
It is, right? I mean, all business is about relationships and
100%.
connections. So you start this cannabis business though, and while you're there, you meet Kareem. Is that what you said his name?
Yep.
Kareem. And so now, was that like an instant, he recruited you over type of thing, or was that a building of a relationship over time? And
yeah, it took some time. Obviously, I was engaged in the other business, and at first, I think, and I'm using words he said. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think what stuck out to him the most during our initial meetings with each other was I didn't talk a whole lot, but when I asked my questions, he thought I had an MBA JD background, because the questions I asked were more along the business side of things and the liability side of things, and maybe a little bit more sophisticated than he was expecting from two guys working out of their garage. And I think that kind of tipped him off to maybe this was a different kind of mind. Again, I had some corporate experience already at this point, working at GE Capital, at Eli Lilly, at Coty Beauty. So I had a number of sort of regular corporate jobs that sort of was in between all the acting and bartending. So I was able to put some of that education that I was able to be fortunate enough to get to use, which was great. So I think coming out of those initial meetings, he was like, oh, maybe there's a bigger conversation to be had. And I think once we started talking, and I saw it right away. I mean, I saw the potential. Obviously, working at the other company sort of gave me my first foray into, online website development, e-commerce, membership sites, marketing sites. Again, this was 2008, 2009. So a little different back then. So yeah, it was, I think that was what sort of pushed him over the top. And then when he heard I had left, I think it was 2 weeks after I had left, he called me within like 2 weeks. It was like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens. So
wow, that's awesome.
That was 12 years ago.
That was 12 years ago. Well, I know exactly. I started my business in 2009. So as you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, a lot has changed.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, just technology, website, everything has changed so much.
Yeah.
All good, not all good. It just depends on how you look at it. But I love, my background was in technology for a little while too. So I kind of love seeing how things have shifted and grown and changed.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think that not being a technologist, but being more of a person who I really enjoy building winning teams
Mm,
and understanding how to collect and aggregate and optimize a group of talent to accomplish a common goal was something that was very ingrained in me just through sports. And also I think ensemble, acting, you really learn how to work as a team towards that. You could be all very different people,
right.
right, when you get there, but you do have a common goal. You tend to have a common value set. There is a culture of success that is consistent amongst winning organizations, and that's always fascinated me. And so that's really what drew me to entrepreneurship, probably more so than what we actually do,
Yeah.
delivering websites, delivering sneakers, whatever it is that you're doing. It's more about the people than the things. It's the who and the why more than like the what
Yeah.
necessarily. And I think that's really where I think my leadership has sort of evolved over the years much more towards that.
Let's talk about teams and building teams, because I think
Yeah.
that, especially for people listening, small business owners, this is a hard thing for a lot of um, new businesses, but also businesses that are scaling. It's, finding the right people, building the right people, and going from doing it all to, there's no way you can scale by doing it all. So
Correct.
what advice would you give to a business owner in those areas? The best way.
Yeah. Listen more, talk less, keep learning, and remember the smartest person in the room knows that they don't know everything.
Mm,
I think, surrounding yourself with great people, not, I hate to borrow cheesy lines from folks like Steve Jobs, but he did once say, and I'm paraphrasing, I think, but we hire the smart people. I don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. I hire smart people so that they can tell me what to do. And I
mhm.
think that there's a lot to that. I think as a leader, what you've got to understand is your skill set is in managing talent,
Mm,
managing people. It's not necessarily always having the answer about one specific niche thing. And I think what I find in a lot of my other work outside of Crowd Favorite, as I work with professional services firms and agency owners, obviously control and delegation those are big things that we talk about in terms of being able to scale responsibly. It does take a village, right, if you really do want to grow. On the other hand, a lot of small business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're born out of the talent side of their business, unlike me, who maybe comes from more of a business background or a non-niche background, right? Whereas a lot of the business owners today, they were developers or they were designers or they are project managers and they were talented. And one day they had too much work for just them to do by themselves as a freelancer. And then they hired somebody. And now they went from being like, oh, I'm the person who delivers like code to,
yeah.
oh, now I'm the person who manages a person and needs insurance and all the other things that take you out of the original idea of why you got into doing what you do. And I think for a lot of owners, that's the other part about why it's so hard to let go, because they've not only just been the principal in their business, but they've been the principal producer in
Yeah.
so many of their relationships that, and yes, you probably do have more institutional knowledge than maybe a new hire, but giving somebody the idea of, look, this is the result we're looking for, you do it the way you need to deliver the result. And if we don't get the result, let's take a look at the process. I
Mhm.
think that's probably the most effective way that I tend to work with other owners, and certainly for myself, that letting go and just saying, look, what do you really care about as an owner or as a leader or as a C-level, whatever you are of a company? You care about the result,
Right.
right? Now, again, I didn't hire this person that they could do the job the way I do it. Hopefully I hired them because they can achieve a same result or a better result doing it their own way. But that takes trust, and that takes patience, and it takes a certain acceptance of failure. And I think especially when you're small and you're starting out, failure's scary. Failure can be expensive, and failure can create chaos and disruption and volatility. And we have all these other external factors that are creating that for us all the time. Sometimes we don't want to add to it. It's just easier if I just do it myself.
Mhm,
Or
mhm.
I know we'll get it done if I just do it myself. You will this time for sure. But if you're serious in a year from now and you want to stop building websites and you want to get out and talk about building websites, which is probably a better use of your time if you're the most senior person or the leader of your company and you want to scale, like that's how you do it. So I think that would be the biggest advice. It's a lot of advice, but that would be what I would tell people.
What would you say for those that say, well, yeah, but I don't have, the budget yet, or to go out and hire some big wig to handle this?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of great people doing a lot. I mean, I think the entrepreneurial world is filled with a lot of consultants, and I'm certainly no different. And one of them, I don't think you need, if you're a $1 million a year professional services company, you're probably not going to hire a C-suite. You probably don't need one. In fact, what you probably need is strong project management and strong business development, or strong project management and strong finance ops people doing that for you, so that you can really focus on the BD, right? Which is not just collecting clients, but also collecting talent, because you're probably the best arbiter of like the culture and the skill set. What does that ideal employee look like, as well as what does that ideal client look like? And as you scale, you start to teach other people what those two groups look like ideally, and that's sort of how it's able to self-perpetuate.
That's great advice. So the show is called The Power of Authority, and it's all about, the more authority you have as a business, as a brand, as an individual, the more impact you can make, personally
Sure.
and professionally. So what would you say, what are you seeing now, especially in the industry that you're in? What's working to help brands to build their authority in the marketplace? And then part two of that question is, what are you doing personally for your own personal brand?
That's a great question. I'll start with the clients. I think, in the digital space, in web development, digital strategy space, I think what we're seeing in the last couple of years has been obviously a major pull forward in budgets and initiatives to get into digital transformation due to the pandemic and other factors that certainly expedited all of that. I think what we're seeing now is a transition from, okay, I've spent the money now to architect and build solutions. Am I getting the most, right, from those solutions that now I've sort of architected? So right now it's really about optimization. And I think the way that a lot of brands are becoming more authoritative, right, within their space is through credibility and authenticity. I think that the consumer is getting more and more savvy, certainly technically more savvy. I think they're becoming more savvy in terms of how they're marketed to and how they're spoken to. I think they care a lot more about values and alignment of those values with companies and brands that they purchase from than they used to. I think these are all good things, and all things that I think there are certain segments of the market that have already gotten there. You can look at apparel, like companies like REI, right, who do amazingly great social work and really put their money where their mouth is. But even the larger companies, a Nike, for example, really digitally adoptive, really ahead of their time in terms of the digital adoption. But then you have other sectors right now, manufacturing, retail, real estate, healthcare, financial services, some of the quote unquote 20th century industries that I think are trying to figure out, if you're Bank of America or you're JP Morgan Chase, it's like, how do I cut through the noise and tell you this is the credit card you should buy from JP Morgan as opposed to the credit card for Bank of America or Wells Fargo or anybody else, right? And so authenticity, credibility, differentiation. I think a lot of that is being accomplished through personalization, right? A personalized experience for every one of their customers, their clients, or their users as they interface with these digital products that these companies are putting out there. So, when I have someone who just took a job at a food delivery company, a good friend of mine, one of those you get the box of dinners every week or whatever. And, they're really like, their whole thing is like, if I order a bottle of wine with that particular meal and then I order that meal again, like that particular bottle of wine should already kind of pop up, right? They should already be there. It should remember me, right? At least that level of personalization. So when the customer comes back, they're like, oh yeah, like they do remember. You go into certain, when I was in retail, or to like Abercrombie and Fitch, but like you went to like Nordstrom, there's the special room with the champagne, and that's what people are looking for online. Oh, they remember your first name. They remember what you bought last time. They remember what your style is, what your pattern is, what your behaviors are. And so that every time you come, it's a more and more optimal, more and more streamlined experience. So I think that is really where brands in particular are getting a lot of their authority these days in being able to convert users or traffic into actually buyers, right, of whatever it is they're selling. Personally, I think the theme is the same, but the methodology may be slightly different, right? So I honestly, authenticity, credibility, these are enormous things. I think whether you're a personal brand or you're an actual entity brand, if you don't have those things, a lot of what we do, really, we're consultants. We're all kind of consultants in the end. And so I tell my sales team this all the time, is you guys have a really hard job. You got to sell something that's pretty expensive to people who don't really understand what it is they're buying. Right. And that's a challenge, right? So not only do you have the typical challenge of selling something to somebody, but you have to educate them on the value of what you're selling. Then you have to sell them on something in a saturated market. There are a lot of people out there providing similar services to Crowd Favorite. So differentiation in how you market. And again, to me, that's really about how you make people feel, not so much what you deliver to them. Is your culture defined? Are your values defined? Do you have alignment with your audience, whether that's a personal brand or a company, right? And are you providing them with a personalized, incredible experience every single time? My experience is when you do that, the rest of it seems to take care of itself.
Yeah, that is such great advice. I love the word alignment. And you are 100% right. When I think about even as if I'm looking for services or to buy something, I want to be, it is how a company makes you feel or a brand makes you feel, and the alignment of the two.
Alignment is the safety net of the relationship. And what I mean by that is there is no customer or client relationship that's ever gone 100% right all the time.
Right.
Here in New York, you've got all these all over the place, but here in New York, you've got these wonderful restaurants, all these Michelin star, right? Whatever it is. I'm sure they don't get 100% satisfaction from every customer that walks in the door. But what do? They're just focused so hard on the experience and the alignment, right? So that when something does go wrong, when it may be their fault, maybe the customer is having a bad day, it could be it doesn't really matter what the reason is. When something goes off track, when something gets unaligned or misaligned rather, right? If you're aligned going in, it's so much easier to get back on track, right? Those things are so small. When you're not aligned and things go off the rails, which they will, then those things become more disruptive to the relationship, and more overhead has to be put into the client relationship and managing that. And it becomes something that's not organic. And I think people really want organic relationships with their partners.
So true. So true. And also how you turn that around. Like you said, there's going to be bad relationships and bad situations. And sometimes
100%.
you don't provide the service the way that the client expected, but it is kind of how you handle it. I think of some of my best clients on the publishing side of our business. We may have had some challenges, but it was, how we responded to those and the dedication and that we're going to make this right no matter what. I think
for the most part, human beings understand that human beings make mistakes. What they can't tolerate or won't tolerate is a lack of, I call it hyper communication, but without communication, there's just a void. And when there's a void, the void gets filled with the very worst thoughts and the worst assumptions. So let's avoid that, right? Yeah. That's our.
All right. One last question for you on just this is in terms of professional development, personal development, because we've talked a little bit about that too. What is a book or a podcast or something that you've listened to or read recently that has really helped you in one of those two areas?
Yeah, 100%. I'm reading a couple different books right now, but the one that which I'm getting through very slowly because it's dense is Ray Dalio's Principles. He had a very unique and idiosyncratic culture that he built at I think it's Northbridge is the name of the hedge fund up there in Bridgeport. But it was very different than a lot of the Wall Street hedge funds. Really, the idea of speaking truth, almost to I don't want to say a detriment, but really transparent truth telling up and down, right? In that sense, a very flat structure in terms of feedback and so on and so forth. But there's a ton of great stuff in that book, and I would highly recommend that. Podcasts, I'm on a pretty good one right now. I would suggest listening to this one. No, but actually I'm in talks with another agency owner right now to start our podcast around operating and owning professional services firms. Again, not so much focusing on what you deliver to clients, but really the business side of operating and owning a professional services firm. and how to scale it responsibly. So I'm a big staircase methodology person in terms of growth. I know a lot of people are very much into the hockey stick approach. And that's why we started Wheelhouse too, is just, we didn't want to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa effect for entrepreneurs where like, oh, they go through this crazy organic growth in like a year or two because they're talented. They have no way to sustain it, no way to support it. And then it falls over on itself. And the entrepreneur is sitting there going 5 years later, like, what happened? We were doing so well. And then, it all fell apart. So anything we can do to certainly help folks in that area. Again, I don't like to see people fail because they succeed. I want people to succeed because they succeed. So yeah.
And you've learned a lot through the years that you can consult other people on to help them,
100%.
Make that. So if somebody 100%. Wanted to get a hold, crowdfavorite.com is the website.
Yes.
But how could they get a hold of you personally if they had questions or wanted?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can always find me on LinkedIn. You can always find me. You can always feel free to email me at jason@crowdfavorite.com. You can also email me at jason@workwithwheelhouse.com. Wheelhouse Advisors works with a bunch of entrepreneurs and small business owners in helping them to scale their companies and help their management teams grow as well. So I'm everywhere that I guess you need to be. I'm not on TikTok yet. We're getting there. I'm having that debate right now with our marketing director. So we'll get there.
Little by little, step by step.
Little by little. I don't know if I'm too old. I feel like maybe I'm too old, but they say no. So we'll see.
No, you got that. Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. Really.
I appreciate it so much, Michelle. This was great. And thank you for the time today.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's it for today, everyone. We'll see you next time on the Power of Authority Spotlight. Have a great one. Thanks so much for listening to the Power of Authority Spotlight. If you are a successful founder, entrepreneur, business owner, or leader that's getting results and making a difference, and you'd like to be on this program, please visit performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast to apply. That's performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast. Also, if you got something out of this interview, please share this episode. Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag #ThePowerOfAuthoritySpotlight. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss any episodes by subscribing. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our websites, performancepublishinggroup.com or michelleprince.com, and follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.